Hello friends, and welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny. This is a restore practice. So if you're unfamiliar with restore, it's very slowed down. It gives us an opportunity to just settle, an opportunity to breathe, to move, to feel the body, and really just a time to step outside of the busyness of our lives and just give ourselves the gift of this time to just kind of hang out, feel into the body, stretch, get things moving, but nothing too excessive, nothing too activating. So in order to help support us, sometimes props are nice in these poses because we do tend to hold the poses a little bit longer. So some common props that are useful for a restore class is a block or two. So I've just got one block and then I've got a little rolled up mat. You can also use books or something of a similar kind of height, and this weight doesn't really matter, just something kind of a little more firm. It's good for bringing in some support, maybe a little lift, or bringing the ground closer in some poses. So those are a nice thing to have, as well as some sort of cushion, blanket, or a bolster. This is an awesome prop to have, especially if you have a regular meditation practice or restore practice. It's just a really nice little tool. And then blankets as well. If you don't have a bolster, it's fine. You can use couch cushions, pillows, stacks of pillows. You can also roll up a thicker blanket to kind of give you a little bit of lift and support there. And then blankets are nice, especially as we start to get into the cooler months, and when we tend to slow down the body a little bit more, we might get a little more cold. So it's just kind of nice to have blankets nearby, again, for a little extra cushion, little padding, or maybe to wrap up in. So for those at home, take some time to gather whatever props you'd like to use. I'll try to give lots of different options within each pose of how to use props and how to do it without props, so it's definitely not necessary. And kind of the theme I want to work with today, I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of this weekend. We had a really awesome fundraising event for Black Lives Matter Salt Lake City chapter, and the theme of that class was moving at the speed of trust. And so I've been sitting with this idea as we planned, the fundraiser and the class, and it's amazing how it can apply to any aspect of your life. And I taught the same theme in my class yesterday for those who are viewing live, because I just think it's so important. It's a really important aspect to bring into your yoga practice, is moving at the speed of trust. And there are so many different things that you need to trust in a yoga practice, or you need to start to build trust in a yoga practice. And one is trust of the body and of your own intuition. So definitely listen, tune in, take that time to build that healthy, respectful relationship with your body. So listen, our nervous system will tell us if we've gone too deep in a pose, or if we need to slow things down, if we're about to get injured. The body will communicate to us, and the more you respond to that, and the more you kind of create that trust between you and your body and your intuition. A lot of us sometimes don't trust our instincts. That's kind of been a struggle for me growing up in kind of a religious, oppressive environment, is that I didn't trust my instincts because what I felt was right wasn't in agreement with what my community was telling me was right. And so that can be kind of a hard thing when you don't have the confidence to kind of trust yourself. So it's through yoga, that's another good way to build trust and to be able to move at the speed of trust within yourself. And then you also want to, within your yoga practice, you need to be able to trust the instructor, and that takes time to build up too. Not everyone is gonna, vibe with every teacher, and something as a teacher that I accept that, I'm not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. But it's important to build that trust in the teacher, to know that they are looking out for you and that they are giving you options that are accessible for your body and options that feel sustainable through your practice. throughout the lifetime of your practice. So there are just a few ways that we can bring that idea of moving at the speed of trust into our practice. So just kind of let that theme kind of settle with you as we move through class today. But the most important one is to listen to yourself, listen to your body. I am simply here as a guide. I am offering suggestions. If the positions that I get us into just don't feel right for you today, find something that does. Listen to your instincts, listen to your body, and start to build that trust, or continue to build that trust. So just let that kind of settle in as we jump into our asana practice. So we'll start seated. Find a comfortable seated position. I like to sit up on my bolster or on a block. It helps, especially if you have tightness in the hips or in the low back. But even if you're pretty flexible through there, it's just kind of nice to get that little lift in the booty. You can tilt the pelvis forward, and it just helps you to find a little more length and integrity, and just sit with a little more intention. So find whatever comfortable seated position works for you. Legs could be crossed, they could be extended. You could have the feet planted, knees up towards the chest. You could even sit in a chair if that feels best for you. Get nice and settled in, connecting to the sits bones, lengthening up through the crown of the head. Relax in the face, relax in the shoulders. You can close the eyes if that feels comfortable, or you can just soften the gaze. And we're just going to take some time here just to settle in. Starting to kind of set aside our busy day, set aside our to-do list, taking off all of the hats that we wear throughout the day, and just allowing ourselves to settle into this space, to settle into our present moment. And one of the fastest ways to connect to the present is to tune into the breath. The breath is one of the most present things that we have. So just start to notice the breath. As we bring awareness to the breath, that helps us to get into our bodies, which helps us to be more present. So that can be a good anchor as we move through our practice. When the mind starts to wander, when thoughts and feelings pop up and they want to pull our attention away, to just simply come back to that breath. And continuing to observe the breath, maybe using the breath to kind of explore the body, to just see what's going on, see how you're feeling today. Checking in on a physical level, noticing any areas of tension or tenderness, any injuries to be aware of, or just anywhere that maybe needs a little extra love today. Checking in with the energetic self, seeing how you're feeling energetically. You're feeling worn down and exhausted from your Monday? Are you feeling energized and needing this to kind of calm yourself down? How are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? And that in itself can be a challenge, to just allow yourself to feel. And hold space for yourself as you feel. Continuing to connect to the breath, you're welcome to just continue with the simple observation. If you want to take your connection to your breath a little bit further, you could breathe with a little more intention, taking deeper breaths, drawing the breath in and out of the nose, directing it all the way down into the belly, which I know you can't actually breathe into your belly, but sometimes when we're not focused on the breath, or when stuff starts to weigh us down, then we tend to shorten the breath and it only maybe reaches the throat, or maybe it gets stuck in the chest. And so we want to draw it all the way down towards the belly, really expanding those lungs on the inhale, and then drawing the belly in to help press all that air out on the exhale. And this is just getting us back to our natural state of breathing. If you ever noticed a newborn breathe, they get that cute little Buddha belly rising and falling. You're also welcome to take the connection to the breath one step further by playing with Ujjayi breathing, finding an activation of those muscles in the back of the throat, muscles that fire up when you're fogging up a window or a mirror, cleaning your glasses, that sort of kind of sound. And that just gives the breath an audible quality, another way for the mind to tune in. So continue to connect to the breath in whatever way feels right for you, through observation, through deep belly breaths, and or through Ujjayi breathing. And then as we continue to connect with the breath and explore the body, just start to find a little movement, whatever feels good here. Maybe it's raising and lowering the shoulders. Maybe it's circling through the torso. Maybe it's reaching the arms overhead, side to side. Just kind of start to bring in whatever kind of movements in your seated position feels good here. Maybe it's rolling through the head. Again, just tuning into your body, starting to move some energy around. Fantastic work. Then we're just going to come forward to hands and knees. So coming into a tabletop. So if you were sitting on any props, go ahead and push them off to the side. And we'll come to our tabletop, all fours, planting the hands, knees underneath the hips, and then just continue with that freestyle movement. Whatever feels good here. Maybe circling through the hips. Maybe finding some cat-cow, arching and rounding through the spine. Maybe it's sending the hips back towards a child's pose and forward towards a really gentle upward dog. Just any kind of movements that would feel good here. Again, just getting a little bit of energy flowing. Tuning into the body. Listening to the instincts, trusting the messages that the body is sending. And then as you feel ready, we'll meet in our tabletops with the hands planted, toes pointed so that the tops of the feet are pressing into the mat. And then just like we did seated, find integrity through the spine, lengthen out through the crown of the head, out through the tailbone. And then just move through some cat-cow here. So inhaling to lower the belly, gaze lifts, pelvis tilts up, heart shines forward as you arch through the spine. And then exhale, rounding out, circling through the spine, tucking the chin, tucking the tail. Nice rounding out. Taking a few rounds here. next time you find yourself rounding out in a cat pose, like a Halloween cat, pause here. Really press into the feet, press into the hands as you draw the belly in, lifting the back of the heart in between the shoulder blades. And then we'll take some torso circles here. So from this rounded out spine, we'll start to send the ribs over towards the right on the inhale. Starting to lower them down, coming through our cow pose as we come back through center, arching through the spine. Shifting the ribs over towards the left on the exhale as we start to come back up through center, rounding out. So take a few more rounds like this through these torso circles, and these could be as big or as small as you'd like. You could bend through the elbows as you circle down and around, or you could stay upright and, I guess, keeping the arms straight. We're not quite upright. And just kind of circling through the torso. And then when you are ready, just switching directions. So coming back up through our arching Halloween cat here, pressing the ribs over towards the left, circling them down and around through center through our cow pose. Shifting the ribs to the right as they draw back up through center. Again, just exploring through this movement in the torso, as big or as small as feels good for you. Awesome work. Slowly making your way back towards neutral. And we're going to come all the way down onto the belly. We want to stay on the mat. So however that works for you, walking the hands forward, walking the knees back. Starting to come all the way down towards the belly. And then we're going to take a Sphinx pose. So this is going to be a little bit of a back bend here. So just kind of take it however feels right for you. Starting with elbows out, hands stacked, and just rest the head down on the knuckles. Now lying on the belly, this already creates a little arch. So this may be enough for you. This may be where your body just wants to hang out tonight. If that's the case, you're in your pose. If you do want to take it a little more into a more traditional Sphinx, definitely not necessary, then we'll extend the hands forward, drawing the elbows so that they're parallel to the ground or parallel to each other and about shoulder distance apart. And right now you can see my hands are still reaching out in front of me. I've still got some arch in my back, but starting to find a little lift in the chest. Now if you are wanting a little bit more, you could start to walk the elbows back, keeping the forearms, the hands on the ground. And a traditional Sphinx pose has elbows underneath the shoulders, hands pressing down. And then as we press into the arms, we lift up through the crown of the head so that the shoulders aren't creeping up by the ears. And then we draw the elbows back so that the chest can come slightly forward. So the gaze could be forward if that feels okay in the neck, or you could tuck the chin down, finding a little more neutral spine through the neck. So this would be a full Sphinx if this feels good. I have low back issues, so coming up this far for too long doesn't feel awesome for me. So my Goldilocks spot for tonight is with the arms a little further extended, so I'm not in quite so much of an arch. So find what works best for you. We don't want to bring in any compression into the low back. We want the legs somewhat active, so we can press into the tops of the feet, and sometimes that activation alone can take a little pressure out of the low back. And then just continue to breathe into the belly. Another way that you could modify this, if you wanted to kind of recreate a little bit of that opening through the chest that we get in our full Sphinx pose, would be to bring in your 2 blocks or books or whatever it is that you have, and setting them up at the top of your Sphinx so that you could lower the fronts of the shoulders down onto those props, and then you can release the head down. So this is also a nice option if you have any pains in the neck. So you'll be, if you are using the props, they'll be hitting, kind of right about that little fleshy, kind of squishy part right after the head of the shoulder. It'll kind of fit right in there so that it allows the chest to drop down, it draws the shoulders back, and you find that little bit of opening without getting too deep into the back bend and still protecting the neck. So another option if you'd like to use props here. Continue to breathe and continue to check in with the body. As I said, we do tend to hold the poses a little bit longer in a restore class. And sometimes when we hold poses, oftentimes what happens is that there is a bit of a release, and then the body settles into that release. As you release, it creates a little more space, a little more opening. And then gravity just kind of helps us work our way into that opening. And sometimes that can feel really good. Sometimes that can take us to places we never thought our body could go. But sometimes it takes us to a place where our body shouldn't go, to where it's going to be, it's too deep, too soon, or it's just not a healthy, a healthy pose to hold for an extended period of time. So that is why it's so important to build that trust with the body, to trust that when the body is saying like, hey, yo, let's hold up, to notice if that is actually the body saying we're about to get injured, or if it's the ego maybe saying like, you can't do this, or you're not strong enough, you're not enough to do this. So there's a lot of different factors that play into that, building our relationship and building that trust with our body. So that's why it's important to move at the speed of trust, so that we don't force anything, we don't crumble our foundation. We're able to build a respectable or respectful relationship with our body, with the ego. Awesome. Couple more rounds of breath here. And as you feel ready, if you are lifted up in your little bit of a back bend, then we'll slowly start to send the elbows out and lower the head down. Coming through a neutral spine, you can rest the head and maybe a little shimmy here. Maybe bending the knees and taking some windshield wipers side to side, or perhaps just lying on the belly. And then nice and slow, we'll just plant the hands underneath the shoulders and slowly start to press our way back up to our tabletop. Pausing for just a moment in a neutral spine here. And then maybe taking some really small cat-cows, nothing too big. Just a little tucking through the tailbone and then lengthening. And then again, if you want to take any other freestyle movements, yogi's choice here. Awesome work. And then to counter our back bending, we'll take a forward fold in the form of a child's pose. So from our hands and knees, we'll start to send the hips back. Arms can stay extended overhead as you lower the head and chest down towards the ground. And there are lots of ways to use props here. This is one of my favorite poses, to use my fancy bolster here, putting it between the legs, so that as I lay down, my torso has some support there. You could slide your cushion or pillows all the way underneath the booty for some support, and as you lie forward, maybe bringing in a block or a pillow or something for the head. You could also use a prop to create more space in the chest if you're wanting to get a deeper stretch that way. Bringing whatever prop in front of you, bringing the hands up on it. Again, that just brings lift, creates more space here as you lower down. And if having the knees, this is a really extreme angle on the knees. It can be a bit much on the knee joints. You could use a bolster, you could roll up a blanket and put it across the calves so you have a little cushion there as you lower down. And again, if it's tough on the knees, you can leave the hips raised and come down into a puppy pose. Arms can be extended overhead. If you want to get a nice release in the upper back and the shoulders, you could turn the palms up, letting the heads of the shoulders roll out. You could also bring the arms back behind you if that feels good, maybe reaching back for the feet, allowing the shoulders to drop down and kind of round out in the upper back. Breathing into that space you're creating. Opening up through the back side of the body. And depending how you have this set up, if you have props that you're using, and if you would like to take this option, again, just a suggestion, if you want to take this into a little bit of side stretching here, the arms extended overhead, you could just start to walk the fingers over towards the right. Getting a nice side stretch through the left side, maybe even shifting the hip, the left hip a little further over towards the left, just to get that full kind of side stretch. So if you are taking that option, then look a little something like this, kind of walking the hands over. Continue to connect to your breath. It can also be nice to bring, you can see I have a blanket on my mat just for a little extra cushion. You could also fold up the blanket underneath the knees to pad the knees. Even if you don't have knee issues, I suggest always padding the knees in yoga poses where you're on the knees, because eventually I feel like everyone's knees are going to be screaming at them at some point in their life, so might as well protect them while we can. If you are taking that side stretch option, then when you feel ready, just slowly starting to walk the hands back towards center. Pausing in neutral for as long as feels good, and then when you're ready, walking the hands over towards the left, getting that nice side extension through the right, maybe shifting the hips over towards the right a little bit more. Just getting that nice side stretch all the way down. Again, if you're taking that option, you can stay in your child's pose or puppy pose if that feels better for you. Connect to the breath. mind wanders, because it's not a question of if, it's when. It's how our mind works. It goes a million miles an hour. We have over 10,000 thoughts a day. We all know there's no switch to turn that off. But when the mind does start to wander, when we start to notice that it's trying to pull our attention away, and when it's trying to project us into the future or drag us back into our past, when we start to notice that, then that's when we want to come back to those anchors, to find the breath, to connect to the sensation in the body. And that's really the goal of yoga, is that mindfulness, of being able to be present to whatever comes up, and to be able to observe without absorbing. So being, I like the term, being the container without being contained by your present moment. So that's really the ultimate goal with all of yoga. Yeah, flexibility is great. Building strength is fantastic. But really, the real work is what's done in the mind-body connection, and our ability to be a little more present. If you are in that side stretch, when you feel ready, just slowly start to make your way back towards center, towards a neutral child's pose. Fantastic. And nice and slow as you feel ready. If the arms were anywhere other than overhead, extend them overhead and then start to walk them back as you press yourself up. And then we'll come into a seated position. So you can swing the legs around and sit kind of in the middle of the mat. So you've got some space behind you. And stretch out through those legs. Might feel good. Since we were on the knees for a bit, maybe shake them out. And then we're going to take another forward fold, but we're going to bring in a little hip opening here too. So we're going to come into a cobbler's pose. So we're going to bring the bottoms of the feet to touch and allow the knees to drop open. Now, if you are like me and have a very stiff body, not very flexible, and not just for a yoga teacher, I'm just not very flexible to begin with. So proof, you don't need to be flexible to do yoga. I like to bring my props in, some blocks here to support the knees so that they don't go too deep and cause any harm. So I got my props there if you'd like, don't need them if that doesn't feel good for you. And then we'll inhale to lengthen up through the crown of the head, sitting nice and tall. Another nice thing too is maybe a little padding underneath the booty, either sitting up on a prop or on a blanket or something like that, especially if you have, again, tight hips or tight low back, just again creating that space. And then as you feel ready, we're just going to start to bow the chest forward. So we're leading with the chest so we have a nice straight spine to begin. And it's tempting here to grab the feet and pull ourselves down. Let's try to resist that by turning the palms up, not even grabbing onto the feet. And then as you bow forward, if it would feel good, releasing the head down, chin tucks in towards the chest, getting some length through the spine, some length through the neck. And if it doesn't feel good to just have the head dangling here, another use of the props, block or something similar, is maybe stacking that in some sort of configuration so that you can rest the head down. can't quite make it with one block, so 2 blocks would come in handy here. But really what we're looking for is, this opening in the hips, and however close you have the heels to the root is going to kind of determine how intense this stretch is. So the further away the feet are from, the root, the more kind of more gentle it's going to feel. It's going to be a little less sensation, which is not a bad thing. It just might feel better in your body that way. And then the closer you draw the feet in towards the body, the more intense that hip stretch is going to be, and it might bring more intensity into your forward fold as well. If you don't have blocks, then you can use a cushion or a bolster, pillows to put underneath the knees. And then maybe bringing in your block for your head. But again, you don't need props here. There's lots of different ways to explore. Releasing through the head, neck, and shoulders. Allowing the sits bones to ground, lengthening through the spine. And continue to check in. So again, we've got gravity working to push us down. We've got the holding of the pose, which holding again can create more space, release at times, which can be good or bad. So keep tuning in. Keep checking in with the breath, checking in with the body. Acknowledging and observing the thoughts, and without getting attached, without letting them take you down that rabbit hole. Fantastic work. And in these last few rounds of breath, just notice if you can release a little bit more. If you're hanging on to tension in the neck and the shoulders, and the face, the jaw, the tongue, anywhere where you can let it go. Don't worry, I won't bust out into the Frozen song as much as I wanted to right then. And as you feel ready, just nice and slow, starting to walk your way back up to neutral. Bringing the hands to the outsides of the knees and just helping to draw them together. Then we'll bring the hands back behind us, stepping the feet out wider than hip distance, and just taking some windshield wipers side to side, little tick-tock. Nice release through the hips, through the low back. Work. And when you feel ready, we're going to take it all the way down to the ground. So taking your time, making sure you have space on your mat to lie down. Coming all the way down to the mat, lying Nice and flat on the spine. We'll keep the knees bent, walking the heels in towards the glutes, and then we'll walk the feet in about hip distance. We're going to set up for a bridge pose. And it is nice to have a prop here, so that it takes some of the activation out of the pose. So you're going to want to grab a block or a cushion of some sort, something that when we lift the hips, we can support underneath the pelvis. So to set this up, pressing down into the feet, lift up through the toes, spread out through the toes as you root down towards all four corners of the feet, and then set the toes back down. Then we'll bring a little puffing up of the chest, drawing the shoulder blades together and tucking the outsides of the shoulders in slightly so that we're exaggerating that curvature in the spine. And then before we come into our full bridge pose here, let's just kind of work through some pelvic tilts. So when you're ready, we're kind of in a natural arch right here. So when you're ready, we're slowly going to start to tilt the pelvis up. So from here, the low back is going to press into the mat. There might be a little lift of the sits bones as the hips kind of raise up towards the ribs. And then on the exhale, we'll tilt the pelvis down, tailbone lengthens, sits bones connect as the low back arches off the mat. So the hips, the pelvis is staying on the ground. We're just working through some pelvic tilts. Just to kind of feel that range of motion. And if this is feeling awesome, feel free to stay here. Nice pelvic tilts. You could take it a step further into pelvic lifts. So then on the inhale, as you tilt the pelvis up, lengthening through the tailbone, pressing into the feet, we'll slowly start to peel the hips up, one vertebrae at a time. Hips raise. And then exhale, nice and slow, setting the spine back down, one vertebrae at a time. And then as the hips and the pelvis connect to the earth, continue with that downward tilting so that we get that little arch in the low back. So this is just kind of combining a little moving bridge and the pelvic tilts. So feel free to take that, raising up to bridge, just as high as feels okay, and then taking it back down. So working through some intentional movement here, either with pelvic tilts or pelvic lifts. And then if and when you want to settle into a bridge pose, with the feet connected, shoulders drawing together, working through that working through the pelvic tilt, and then lifting up, pausing here. You can stay here in this more active kind of pose, but since this is a restore class, we can take the supported bridge, so sliding either, your cushion, bolster, block, stack of pillows, rolled up blankets, anything to just support that lift of the pelvis. So we're still getting that stretch in the hip flexors, getting a little bit of some back bending, getting this opening through the chest. Hands can be doing whatever they'd like. You can be in goalpost, out into a T. If you don't have a prop and you're in full bridge, you could interlace the hands underneath the low back. Again, that's very activating, so I definitely don't need to push it here. We've got the chest lifting towards the chin, shoulder blades drawing towards each other in the back, and then the chin is lifting up towards the ceiling. So there's sometimes a tendency to tuck the chin down, and that closes off our throat. maybe makes it a little harder to breathe. So press into the back of the head, get some length through the spine, chin lifting up towards the sky. So again, still your choice if you are working through pelvic tilts, pelvic lifts, or coming into a supported bridge. Take about 3 or so more rounds of breath here. Fantastic work. If you are in a supported bridge, then find that reconnection down to the feet. Find the connection to the shoulders. When you're ready, on an inhale, pressing into the feet, into the shoulders, lifting the hips high enough to slide your prop out from underneath. And then nice and slow, one vertebrae at a time, setting the hips back down. Pausing here in a neutral spine. Again, maybe walking the feet out a little wider than hip distance. And maybe another round of windshield wipers would feel good here. After a few rounds of breath in a neutral spine, if it would feel good to draw the knees in towards the chest, bringing a little tuck through the tailbone, lengthening through the spine for a little counter stretch. And maybe a little self-massage as you rock side to side. Fantastic work. We'll take this into a happy baby. So bringing the hands to the outsides of the knees, flexing the feet back. And then we'll open up through the knees. And then the knees you're going to draw in towards the armpits, feet up towards the ceiling. Hands can come underneath, behind the knees. They can reach up the legs or reach for the outsides of the feet. Knees continue to draw in towards armpits as you lengthen through the tailbone. And again, you could rock side to side. You could extend one leg out and then the other. You could bring the feet together in kind of a reclined cobbler's pose with the feet, bottoms of the feet touching, feet raised up off the ground if that feels good. This pose looks really funny, but it feels so good. Just imagine a cute little baby playing in its crib, nice and happy. And as you feel ready, we'll release the feet down, keeping the knees bent. Awesome work. And then we'll just set up a little figure 4, a little reclined pigeon. So keeping left knee bent, we'll extend the right leg up towards the sky, flex the right toes back, and then turn the toes out towards the right. So a little external rotation there. Then we'll bend in the knee, crossing the right ankle on top of the left knee, and then letting that right knee open up towards the right. You're welcome to stay here. This may be enough sensation for you. Other ways you could explore more sensation, you could bring the right hand to the thigh and gently press it open. You could gently start to draw the left knee towards the chest. You could plant the left foot on a block or a bolster or interlace the hands behind the knee. If you do have that left foot raised, flex the toes back. And no matter where you are, keep the right toes active. So keep them flexed back. Keep that active flex. And then if you do have that left knee raised and want to explore with a little more movement, you could bring in a little gentle rocking side to side. You could bring the right elbow towards the right knee and use it to gently press that knee open. You could also use the hands to gently draw the left knee towards the left shoulder. And it's all going to give you some sensation in the outside of the right hip. Maybe even into the glutes. You might feel this up in the low back. Maybe on the outside of the hip in the SI joint. Notice any tension here in the neck, the shoulders, the tongue. The only tension that should be in this pose is if the legs are raised and the hands are interlaced behind the knee. Just a little bit of tension between the fingers. Other than that, we should find softness and ease in the body. And we won't be here for long, just about another 3 or so more rounds of breath. Awesome work. When you are ready, if that left foot was raised, release it down. Uncross the right leg, plant it down, and then take any movements between sides that would feel good. Maybe another round of windshield wipers, or extending the legs out, extending them up, another happy baby, rolling like a ball, whatever you want to do to reset. And then we'll start to take that on the other side. Our final pose before our relaxation. Feet planted on the floor, knees bent, extending the left leg up towards the sky. Flex the toes back towards the face and then turn them out towards the left, getting that external rotation through the hip and then bending the knee. Left ankle crosses over right knee as you open up through that left knee. And you're welcome to stay here. There's a lot of sensation happening here. If you do want to go a little bit further, you can bring the left hand to the left thigh to gently press it open. You could start to raise the right foot up, drawing that right knee in towards the chest. You could rest the right foot on a prop or interlace the hands behind the knee, keeping toes flexed back. And again, you have those options, little gentle rocking side to side, left elbow, left knee, or right knee drawing gently towards right shoulder. Feel, breathe, listen. We do work both sides to bring balance, but we don't want to force the same shape on each side. We want to, get to know the differences in our bodies, the asymmetries, the imbalances, because they're going to be there for various reasons. Some of them is just the way we're built. Some it's, old injuries. Some it's the way, we carry ourselves, the way our muscle structure has developed. Some of it is tension or trauma or emotions that we're storing in the body. So lots of different reasons. So that's why it's good to continue to build that relationship with the body so that we can learn, okay, this imbalance is here. Is this something that I can work to change? Or is this something that I need to learn to work with, to embrace? Because I cannot change it. It's part of how I was built. So yeah, all important ways to build a healthy relationship with your body. To Move at the speed of trust through your yoga practice. A few more rounds of breath here. As you start to feel ready, releasing the foot down if it was raised. Crossing through the legs, taking any movements, any counter stretches that would feel awesome. And we're going to start to make our way towards our Shavasana, or our final relaxation pose. But if there are any other movements, any stretches that you'd like to take to help round out your practice, help you settle in, then definitely feel free to take those. Maybe we didn't do much twisting, maybe sending the legs up, anything that would help. And then whenever you're finished with whatever last movements the body is craving, taking as much time as you'd like to do that. And we'll start to settle into our final relaxation pose. And just like everything else in this practice, that is yogi's choice. Could be traditional corpse pose, lying on the back, palms turned up, toes turned out. But if that doesn't feel awesome in your body tonight, or today, whenever it is that you're taking this class, then use props to support you, find a different position, lie on the side, lie on your belly, meet me in a seated meditation, whatever position you want to take for this final part is totally up to you. So take as much time as you'd like to settle in to that final pose. Settle in, just really allowing yourself to surrender. Allowing the body to feel safe and supported and held in this space. Allowing the breath to flow freely and naturally. Giving the mind permission to settle into the peace of the present. Yourself to just be. practicing at home, if you do have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, to this time of surrender, and please take as much time as you can give yourself, at least 5 minutes, upwards of 20. As you feel ready, just gently start to bring some movement back into the body. If you're lying down and not already there, just gently start to roll onto one side of the body, taking your time. There's no rush here. Wherever you find yourself, just pause for a moment and give yourself some gratitude. Being thankful for carving out the time to step on your mat, to give yourself this gift of self-love and self-care, to give yourself this little bit of time to move and breathe and connect. And as you feel ready, if you're not already there, gently pressing your way back up to a comfortable seat. As you feel ready, I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this slow down practice, moving at the speed of trust, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.